Welcome, everybody. I am so excited to be here with you, whether you're watching live or watching on replay. I would like to introduce you to my friend Dana. Dana, for those that don't know you, can you tell a little bit about yourself and your work?
Yes, absolutely. So, hi guys, I am Dana Abraham, and I have been working with parents who have kids who are struggling with challenging behaviors. And I'm the founder of Calm the Chaos, where we help parents become problem solving partners for their kids. And I've been doing this for about 8 years online, but I've been in the field for over 2 decades as a educator myself in early childhood, and then as a parent myself of a child who really struggled, was kicked out of more schools than I just lost count. And so, both in the trenches experience and also, education experience as well.
Wonderful. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Catherine Hallisey, psychologist and mum of 5 young kids. I have worked in this area for 20 years. Children who have extra things going on, it's my passion, and about how we can make simple changes as parents, simple changes within ourselves that brings about profound changes for our children. So that is why I'm so excited to have you here this evening, Dana.
Well, I am so excited to be here. I know we had a lot of fun the other day in your community answering
Yes.
questions. So, yes, super excited.
Dana, I would love if you could just give us an overview of the framework that you
Mhm.
use, because I think
Okay,
it's really
yeah.
powerful.
So my camera for doodles aren't working, and that is just a
No.
signature piece of something that I do. So what I'll do is I'll just hold it up if that works. So let me grab
Brilliant.
my daughter's behind me doodling as well. So
Wonderful.
runs in the
And so,
family.
guys, I've got to tell you, Dana does the most amazing doodles. Dana did a session in my membership recently, and the doodles were so powerful. Everybody's still talking about it, how it makes things so easy to understand. And you know what? It made me realize again and again and again why visuals are so important, because we can take
Mhm.
complex concepts and make them simple. So,
Yes,
Dana,
yes.
I don't care that your camera isn't working. I'm just so
I
happy
got
you
it.
have it.
Okay, so let's make sure that I can get it all the way in. Okay, so the way that I see things is I think that there is so much great information out there. When I was looking to help my son, I thought maybe I'd missed something. So I went back to all of my learning and all of the things that I had been taught. And I found like two schools of thought, like two stacks of books. One, the ones that were completely outdated, and it was like my way or the highway, or it's like very one size fits all. And they really just left me feeling like if I didn't do it perfectly, then I was broken. And then if it didn't work for my kid, then he was broken. So I didn't like any of those. And then there was this other pile of books that had lots of specks of gold where I was like, ooh, this is great. Oh, that's great science. Oh, that's great theory. And it might have tips or tricks or strategies in there, but then piecing it together in the moment was like, I needed the whole parenting library all at once in the moment. And so what I realized is that there were four key ingredients, a lot like baking a cake. Like whether it's a box cake or it's, you're doing cake boss, it doesn't matter. There's really like four basic pieces that you need to be able to handle struggles. That is absolutely beautiful, my darling. All right. So she's, like I said, she's doodling. So what I found is that, and you'll hear a lot of these from other people as well. So the number one thing that I think about is connection. You hear so often that your kids need to feel connected, and a lot of times you might hear connect before you correct, things like that. So your kids need to feel seen, valued, heard before they're going to be able to listen and be able to change behavior in any way, shape, or form. Number two is there has to be an understanding piece. And unfortunately, those of us who have out of the box kiddos, we learn the understanding piece because we have to. So we end up going to therapies and doctors and reading more books than the average parent and going to summits and all those things. But there's so much that I learned about all humans that I think is such a core basic piece. Hold on just a second. Yes, ma'am.
Um, and how long can I get on?
You have 20 minutes, actually 13 minutes. Okay. All right.
So, guys, I've got to give you context. Dana is doing this like a boss. She is here with her daughter beside her and managing all of this technology. I'm in awe.
Yes, my daughter stayed home from school, so I'm just helping her out just a little bit here on the side. So I don't know if you could see her off to the side, but anyway, so the understanding piece is core, and I find that a lot of people are missing this piece of like why is the behavior happening. A lot of newer science out there is like, oh, all behavior is communication, like what's under the surface, but finding what's under the surface can be really challenging. And then this piece um, that you'll see a lot of people jump to is the empowerment piece. So it's, giving your kids choice, it's giving them a plan, it's printing off something from Pinterest, it's jumping to the solution. The solution is super important, and we want to empower our kids with a solution that they are part of and teach them how to, self advocate and be self aware and how to problem solve. But if we jump to that and we forget the other pieces, then it's not really going to work as well. And then the final piece that holds it all together is you. You are the linchpin that holds it all together. So this is swapping old thoughts and beliefs that can hold you back. We have all this like head trash that we've been, that's been ingrained in us sometimes for generations. And so we have to battle that first, and we have to swap those thoughts, get grounded in the moment. And then it's also about prioritizing. So instead of doing all the things, it's about doing less but better. So that's our framework, those four pieces: you, connect, understand, empower. We call that UQ. And then we use that to craft plans. So plans to remain calm in the moment, plans to get your kid calm, and we stack them and layer them on like a layered cake.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And Dana, could you talk a little bit about some of these plans? Because I love the way you layer them and the way you talk about doing less but better. And I think that's such an important message for all of us parents because, like, let's face it, it's one of the hardest jobs we'll ever have. And yet we have this idea, myself included, that we should be able to do it all perfectly.
And you shouldn't, not at all. So what we've found through a lot of testing and working with, so far we've had over 5,000 families go through this framework, and we've had a lot more if you count the people who've been through our workshops and who are in our world. That's in the hundreds of thousands. But when you talk about the people who I've worked intimately with, it's over 5,000 families who've used this framework, and we have just continued to tweak and test it until we've really dialed it in and gotten it to where it just works. Like it works, it works, it works. Like I trust it so much at this point because I've seen it used with so many different scenarios. And so the plans that stack upon each other are kind of like stages. And so you go through these stages, and the first one is all about getting safe. So that's the first one, is get everyone safe. And then the next one is about getting you calm. And then the next one is about getting your kids calm. And we call this an in the moment, like knowing what to do in the moment. We call this one a ride the storm.
I love that. I've been calling that in the moment, and once I heard you saying ride the storm, I'm like, oh, I so need to call it the ride the storm.
Yeah. So this is ride the storm because it's not just what your kid's going to do in the moment, because you don't have control over what your kid's going to do. And especially when you're first starting out with, creating these plans, a lot of times people can get really frustrated because they're like, okay, well, when this happens, this is what we're going to do. Don't forget, we're going to do this. You said you were going to, and you emotion coach them and do all these things, but they're not developmentally ready, or they don't have the skills and the practice yet to be there. And so you have to have it down first before you can teach it to them. So it's about you being able to ride whatever category storm it is. And so it's kind of like, what I think of? I think of the cities who unfortunately have just been hit by a surprise hurricane or tornado, and it just kind of comes out of nowhere, and or feels like it came out of nowhere. And for the first time it happens, or maybe even the second time, it's like, we just got to get through this. Like, we've just got to make sure that everyone is doing what they can to like get through the storm. And then afterwards, you can say, okay, I'm going to make a plan for next time this happens, whether it's an emergency plan or whether it's an in the moment where everyone can like kind of go to their safe place and, get to their calm. But it's that like prepping ahead of time. And then that brings us to what most of us jump to, which we call ahead of the moment, which we say ATM. But that's getting a system in place and a plan in place that actually catches it before it happens. So these are like the morning routines. These are the rules. These are the agreements, or these are the, if this happens, then we'll do this. Like, but so often we jump to ahead of the moment and we don't know what we're going to do in the moment. And so in the moment, we're trying to solve the problem. And you can't solve the problem until you know why it's happening in the first place. So that's why these build that way. And then from there, we actually start getting the entire family on board. So that's where you start sharing this with the family, and each member can start to, we call these family success plans. So this is where each family member knows each other's sensory preferences, their likes, their dislikes. They know how to advocate for their needs and wants, like all those different things. And the family just works together.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And so I suppose our big topic this evening is about mastering meltdowns. Now, when I put out an email telling people that this was happening
Sorry, I
and
don't know if you could hear
inviting,
that. My phone just did something weird. I'm sorry.
no problem,
Okay, I fixed it. I'm so sorry.
no bother. Something always happens with technology when you're
Right.
live, no matter what. So when I invited people to join us for this session, whether it's live or on the replay, and I was talking about mastering meltdowns, and the question that always comes back is, will it work for me? Will it work for my
Mhm.
child? And can you tell us a little bit about what you feel are the key ingredients to mastering meltdowns? Like, is
Mhm.
it really looking beneath, because like you've spoken about starting with yourself. So, well, what are the key ingredients?
Yeah, so yes, first of all, it does work with you. And the reason that I feel so confident and certain about that is because of the thousands of people that we've worked with. And we've worked with parents, teachers, therapists, doctors, pediatricians, like you name it, even a bus driver. And so, we've talked with adults, and we have um, also worked with adults that have kids of all ages with all different neurodiversity, and it's been tested for all different situations as well. You have 5 minutes, friend. 5 minutes. Okay. And so I can say with certainty, yes, I believe that the framework will work. And the key to mastering meltdowns is kind of a combination of what we just talked about. So first, it's that UQ framework. So it's you being able to ride the storm in the moment, and being able to really anchor yourself and not add more fuel to the fire, and realizing that you're human. It is okay if you're getting triggered, if you're struggling, if you're having a hard time. Because remember, like, you have your own thought patterns, you have your own sensory needs, you have your own pieces of the puzzle going on, not to mention whatever your child is doing that may be, that may be kind of like frustrating to you, that you feel that you should be over by now. And so when that's happening, it really is just about grounding yourself. And I talk about kind of like practicing that grounding technique out of the moment. And it's something super simple. Instead of doing all the things, there's tons of things you can do to ground yourself, but having one. And we use something called Stop, Breathe, Anchor. And I go into this more in our Meltdown Mastery workshop. But Stop, Breathe, Anchor is just literally like stopping. You don't have to run away. You don't have to lock yourself in a room. You don't have to go anywhere. It's really just stopping in the moment, grounding your feet, taking a deep breath into your belly, and then saying something in your own head that will help tell your brain, hey, friend, you're calm, you're safe. So that's number one. And you can just kind of keep that on repeat as you try to ride the storm out. And then it's about creating these moments of safety. That's how we see connection, not just, I'm going to play games with you, or I'm going to get closer to you. I always hear my kid's going to hit me if I get closer to him. Like I can't get closer in the middle of a meltdown. So it's about providing what we call moments of safety, because I believe that's what true connection is. And so it's lowering your shoulders, it's changing your body language. It may be sitting down instead of standing. It's getting into the same room as them instead of being in the kitchen while they're in the basement. It's changing your eyes and changing your jaws, like actually doing a body scan and being like, all right, what signals am I sending without saying a word? And then even checking some of the words you're using. So we have people practice their scripts, and this is that in the moment plan. Like, what scripts are you going to use in the moment, and what are you going to do to calm yourself? Oh, I'm going to do a body scan, and I'm going to calm my own self down first and make sure that the words I'm using and the body language I'm using doesn't add fuel to the fire. In the moment, the understanding piece is just understanding that there's something else going on. So we have two core pieces of our understanding. We have one, which is under the surface, which is iceberg. And I'll do another little doodle here instead of using my hands. Okay, so we believe in the iceberg theory. For anyone who, is more scientific terms, right? Polyvagal theory of like, what you see upstairs is not what's really going on under the surface. This is just 1/7. And so, but what happens if you've seen the memes, there's all these things here that could be under the surface, and trying to figure out what that is can be really difficult. So we actually start with something we call a funnel, a behavior funnel. And it combines some of the different theories from different practices over the years that, and in the latest like brain science. So it starts with basic needs. And if you think about a meltdown, most meltdowns are coming from this basic need of safety, right? You hear a lot that the tantrums are coming from power or attention, but really, instead of attention or power, it's control. I need to control the situation. I need to know what's going on right now. And the other piece is like, I need connection. I need to feel connected. I need to feel safe. And then the other one, and there's lots of other reasons it can happen, but the other reason a child can be having a true meltdown is a sensory need. And it's not reserved for kids who have a diagnosis. It's not just kids who are autistic or have ADHD or sensory processing disorder or, any of the other diagnoses. It's sensory preferences are something that I think is one of the most missed pieces of human development.
Yes.
And if we knew more about sensory processing, as like a human race, I believe that we would be better friends and better parents and better humans, because it helps explain like why we do what we do, why we like what we like, why we don't like what we don't like. And we're never, like, growing up, we're not taught that. We're taught that it's just, you see things, you hear things, but it's not, it's how you integrate with the world. And so it's really a core piece, just like multiple intelligences. It's like that important. And then under that, we have lacking skills. And then after that, there's a few other things. But those are the key ones in the middle of a meltdown. Now, you're not going to solve any of that in the middle of the meltdown. It's about just saying, something else is going on. And so I'm not going to take this personally. And then out of the moment, digging below the surface to say, okay, were the basic needs met? Were we connected? Is there a sensory thing that I can remove or take away or add in the moment? And then the other thing that we do in order to figure this out is we do something called a behavior spiral. And so this is the behavior in the center, and you spiral it out to see what led up to that behavior instead of the old thinking that it's antecedent behavior and then a consequence, that it's like before and then it's the behavior and then it's after and that's it. And you look at it linearly, you look at it whole picture, you zoom out and you look at what are all the things that kind of spiraled up, including the parents' moments of safety and the adults languaging and the adults repeating of demands and the adults like eyebrow furrows and that sort of stuff kind of leading up to. And then the empowerment actually happens out of the moment where you come together and you say, so I notice that when you get upset, you start hitting or kicking. And I'm wondering if we can come up with a plan to stay safe in the moment. So that's kind of like the beginnings of, and the most basic pieces that if I was just talking to a friend about the meltdowns they're having, those are the pieces that I would hope that they'd walk away with. So I hope it
And
wasn't
take
overwhelming.
no, that was really amazing, and I'm going to dig into this a little bit more. You know, we were both teachers in another life
Mhm.
and would have been trained in the antecedent behavior consequence thing. And this is something that I would have shared with people even in my work as a psychologist. And for those of you who don't know it, it's just this idea of you've got the behavior in the middle, and the antecedent is what comes before it. And then the consequence is what happens after it. And, you know, this idea is that children are doing things because they want to get something or they want to get away from something. And it's all about attention, avoidance, and getting something. And it was delightfully simplistic, but extremely ineffective. And
Yes. Yeah.
it was of its time. It was, and but I suppose we have to keep coming back to when you know better, you do better.
Mhm.
And when we take what we're learning about the brain and the nervous system and the impact on behavior, it's why it's so important that so many people are questioning the reward charts, the timeouts, these traditional paradigms. And I suppose having that reframing, that shift in focus, and you use the word safety, you know, and there are so many parallels with what you're talking about here now to what we use in the membership and in my Raising Well
Mhm.
Behaved Kids workshop. You know, we talk about practicing the pause, using
Mhm.
mantras so that you can actually calm down your own nervous system so that you can
Mhm.
then help your child get calm.
Yeah.
And it really is based on all of the research that's coming out, isn't it? Like, you know, I know you're
Yes.
talking about polyvagal theory, and we won't go into too much theory because I suppose we're really talking about the practical things.
Yes.
I would love if you could share a little bit about how this work is and these strategies are applicable to older children. Because often
Yeah.
people think that these strategies are just for younger children, but I know that I use these strategies for myself. I use them in all my adult relationships. So, could you share an example of how to use this, let's say, with a 14-year-old or a 15-year-old?
Yeah, absolutely. So I will, I always like to make the caveat that teenagers, adults, when you use this with older children, I find that it really tests it. It's really fun because I'm always like, oh, I don't know, will it work? And time again, yes, it will. Okay. So it's just funny because at the beginning, I'm like, I don't know. Every time we'd get someone new in our program and it's like, oh, will this work with teenagers? I'm like, I don't know. Let's try it, you know? And so we would use it with teenagers. Will this work if my child has Down syndrome and has this? I'm like, I don't know. Let's try it. So with
Yes, I'm so glad you
teenagers,
brought that. I'm
yeah.
so glad you brought that up. I really want to explore that with you because I know these strategies work no matter what the situation or I suppose the label that somebody
Uh-huh.
currently has. It's simply about adapting it, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And so the thing that I always my caveat with teenagers is that teenagers have patterns, right? If you they've got 14 years under their belt of
Yes.
getting their needs met, either appropriately, inappropriately, in a calm way, in a not calm way. Plus now they're dealing with all these hormones and body changes and, friend issues, and now they're starting to like girls and boys and all these things. So like teenagers have a lot going on and you have patterns. So it's not just that the kids have patterns and they have, teenage years of patterns built up, but you have patterns in the way that you've responded, reacted, dealt with, talked with these kids. And so you have to go in it knowing I'm going to make small tweaks. It's going to be small and it's going to take some time. And so the two big pieces you're going to work on, right? You need all four, but the two you're going to lean into is the you piece of changing your belief from they're just manipulating me, they're just, they're just a surly teenager, or, like, they're just like always on their phone, and you're just focusing on those things. Anything that brings up that like resentment feeling, you're going to want to focus on that and swap your thoughts and remember that they're human and you were once a teenager, right? So the good news is they will grow out of being a teenager. That's the good news. And then the second piece is the connection piece, because I find so often it's hard to connect with teenagers. They just want to be on their phone. My son is like on his phone like all the time. I'm like, are you really still on the phone? Like, I have to walk in. The other day I got out of the bath and I went in his room and I was in my towel. I was like, hey, buddy, we're going to do XYZ in a minute. And he's like, Mom. I was like, what? He goes, I'm on the phone. And teenagers these days apparently just like have voice, like they have their video phone on. It's not even just phone. I was like,
Yes.
guess your friend saw me in the towel then, didn't they? And so like the connection piece is super important. So you have to join them in the things they're doing. Even if you don't like Fortnite, even if you don't like the latest movie that's just come out from Marvel. Look, I've seen the best of the heads get chopped off, because I know that if I take my kids to do the things they want to do, I listen, I lean in, I hear them, they feel validated, they feel then they'll come to me for the things that are a little scarier. And so it's
Mm.
about that 5 to 1, really building those moments of safety and connection out of the moment as much as possible, and getting curious as to why things are happening instead of assuming. So with 14-year-olds, we can jump to assumptions, right? Like, you just care about your phone, not your schoolwork. Well, maybe he feels safer in his phone than he does at school. So maybe dig into, why does he not feel safe at school? So it's just about keeping that curiosity mindset and helping them be able to be the ones that are creating plans, knowing they're going to fail. Like, that's the big one with teenagers too, is let them fail. Like, let them set up this plan that they're going to do XYZ, and you're like, that's not going to work. I already know that's not going to work. But if you tell them that, guess what they're going to do? They're going to fuck the system and they're going to head to head, right? Like, nothing motivates me more than when someone tells me I can't do something. So I get where these kids are coming from. And so you have to let them be empowered in this plan, even if you know it's not going to work, and don't tell them, I told you so afterwards. Like, you just don't. You just got to validate it. Like, also, I'd like for you to celebrate with me that I just had hit 8,000 steps and I've been on a computer all day long, because
With your
I
talking with your hands.
talking with my hands. It was like, congratulations. My Fitbit all week has been like, man, you're on a roll. And I'm like, yeah, I am.
And Dana, it really sounds like one of the adaptations when they become teenagers is you're rethinking how you do connection. Instead of, with the smallie, you're bringing them about your day with you and letting them help you. So you're bringing them into your world. So, but with a teenager, you're really joining them in their world.
And I would
You're
say any child who is any out of the box kid, right? I would say for like a typically developing child, that bringing them into your world a lot of times works. But if you've got a child who doesn't have verbal language, so if you've got a child who's autistic and maybe doesn't connect on the same level as other children, you've got a child who's highly anxious, then joining them is actually more powerful than bringing them into your world. And so I actually use it in both places, but bringing kids into your world is obviously a beautiful thing to do. My daughter was, doodling down here, even though I've been working all day. And so I do the same thing of like sit beside me activities. But for some kids, you do have to like just join them.
wonderful.
Yeah.
And you mentioned there about if you're doing your plan with your teenager, it sounds like there's something in there about you're trying to activate your teenager's problem solving skills and not saying, look, this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
You're bringing that openness and curiosity and helping them discover what's going to work.
Yeah, and again, that's the same case all the way from toddlers up. My daughter's like, "I'm hungry." I'm like, "Okay, how would you like to solve that problem?" Like that's kind of what I say. Like for anything, like Mom, I really, I'm getting bored. Okay, how would you like to solve that problem? And I'm just a facilitator and a guide at that point.
I love that. What I'm hoping to do is take what you've been talking about so far and start applying them to actual real life issues that people are having. So please, everybody watching, whether you're watching live or on replay, please start asking your questions. It's so much more helpful for your own learning when you're able to get feedback on how to apply this to your situation.
Mhm.
One of the members in my group sent me an email earlier. So, Dana, I am going to ask you about this. So, this little girl is now 5. She had a tricky start in life. She was born at 28 weeks. She spent 8 weeks in Neo being pricked and prodded, and her mom is wondering, is this causing her to have difficulties regulating herself now? She has done really well. She started school, settled in well, but she seems to be going from 0 to 100 really quickly. So even though this mom has put loads of strategies in place, so she's doing the name it to tame it. So her daughter, who's only 5 now, has a really good ability to say that she's frustrated. But what her mom is concerned about is that it's going on so long, and it's now making her wonder, is she too permissive? Is she too permissive by allowing it to go on so long? And she's thinking back on her own childhood, and she wasn't allowed to scream down. They had to be, there were totally different behavioral expectations. And now she's feeling that she's too soft at times, and then she loses her cool when it goes on too long. So she wants to step in and help, but she's wondering how patient is she supposed to be, as her little one could just keep on going forever. And then she says at the end she's a fantastic girl and she's done so well, and developmentally she's doing so great, but it's just this issue around regulating her emotions that she finds hard. And her mom is just feeling really stuck, that she feels she doesn't know what to do to help her daughter realize that she can't kick and scream the house down whenever she's frustrated.
Okay. So, I mean, if you go back to the beginning and kind of go back through the things we talked about,
Yes.
right? Is that, first and foremost, like the understanding piece is super important. And so I am not a doctor. I'm not a therapist. I don't pretend to be one on TV. Like I am a mom and an educator and a coach, and I've helped people through this. And one of the things that I know about child development is and sensory is that when you develop when you are a preemie or a child is born early, that there are things that will carry on throughout their lifetime. And while she might be developed in her social skills, she might be developed in her reading and writing and physical and all those things, and health wise, there could be a piece of her that is asynchronous, right, which isn't able to really recognize those feelings and emotions. Her executive functioning skills could be underdeveloped. Her, as she already said, we know her self regulation skills are underregulated, and her self awareness skills are underregulated or underdeveloped. And so, could it have caused it? 100%. You can't go back and unprick her. And so it is just part of who she is. And then the part about giving lots of strategies, lots of tools, that goes back to that piece of jumping to the empowerment piece. Giving our kids the self regulation tools, the growth mindset tools, the names for the feelings are all phenomenal skills, and they're all great. And I'm not saying don't do any of those. But if your child struggles to even recognize that they're boiling up, if they can't spiral things out on their own, if they can't communicate after they've had a blow up about what actually led up to that, then in the moment you can't expect them to even use it. And so it's about helping your kids be able to she's going to still have fits for a while. And so afterwards it's helping her make sense of what happened. Instead of you can't do that, it's like, okay, so when you're upset, I notice that you scream and you kick and you yell, and that's just kind of how your body reacts right now. And sometimes that can make other people think that you don't like them or you don't care about them. And I know that's not the case because XYZ, all the things that this mama just said is amazing about this, this little girl. But her fierceness, her passion, her like way she's going to show up in the world seems big, right? And I find that with a lot of preemies that they show up big in the world. They want to be seen and heard and because she's a fighter. The fact that she fought through when she was 28 weeks old to be strong and to be caught up developmentally, like that little girl is innately a very fierce fighter. And so that's going to come through when she's trying to solve problems, when she's frustrated. And so leaning into that instead of trying to dismiss it, instead of trying to get rid of it. So there's two analogies that come up for me for this. One is if you're like a superhero fan and you like Marvel, I think of Hulk and Bruce Banner in the last. We think we were talking about this on the coaching call, but in the in game movie, they're all looking at him and he's combined, right? He's a green Bruce Banner, and they're all looking at him funny, and he's like, "Well, I just realized that for so long I was trying to get rid of Hulk, but Hulk is part of who I am. He's the best part of me, and I just embraced him." That's not his exact words, but it was like a very like crying moment of like, yes, go team, go. Yes, I loved that. And then the other one I love is this parable about Michelangelo and someone asking him, well, Michelangelo, like, how did you build David? Like, how did you build this beautiful statue? And he says, oh, he was already there. I didn't build David. All I did was remove the bits that weren't him. And so I think that is kind of what we're doing with our kids is we're leaning into the fact that they already are this amazing, beautiful being. And we have to help them, coach them, guide them into how to kind of hone those strategies, or not those strategies, those characteristics about themselves. We don't want to get rid of her passion. We don't want to get rid of her fierceness and her fighting. Like we want her to do that, but we want her to understand how to use it and how to get her needs met without the need for the kicking and the screaming. And so that is an iterative process that we talked about earlier.
And I think that's really, really important about thinking about her temperament. And you're right, like fighter was the exact word that I was thinking of. Like she's obviously really, really spirited. And you
Mm-hmm.
used asynchronous as well. Sometimes when a child has caught up developmentally, we expect all of their skills to be at that level. But we know emotional regulation comes later anyway for lots of
Mm-hmm.
kids, but particularly when there's been a hard start in life.
Mm-hmm.
So, thinking about practical strategies about what this mom can do, what do you think should be her next step?
Um, okay. So bear with me. I know there's, some ingrained beliefs and thoughts in this mama's head, right?
Yeah.
So if we're using the UQ, and I always go to UQ to solve things. So the first thing is, are there beliefs that are causing this mama to not be able to interact with this child in the way that she wants to? And I can hear the love and the support that this mom has for this daughter and how much she wants to be there to support her. But yet she's like, but I wasn't raised this way, right? And so that belief that she had, she can let go of it. It's no longer serving her. Like, bye bye, right? She can swap that belief into, okay, yeah, I wasn't allowed to do this, but did that serve me at a young age? Like, were there times I wish I could have shown my emotions? Were there times I wish I could have cried and it was kind of like I was told to keep it down? Is that actually a good thing? And so, if she can see that it's actually a good thing that her daughter can express herself, can speak up for herself, like how many grown women, especially, do we know that wish they could speak up for themselves, that wish they could stand up for themselves, right? So, if you can swap that thought and that belief about this is a bad thing about her into this is a superpower, that can be really, really powerful. And then staying
And
calm when it's
even
happening.
just to say as well, Dana, I think it's very important that you brought up about adult women because about the social acceptability of the emotions that women can show.
Mhm.
It seems to be much more socially acceptable to be crying softly than to be raging. So there could
Mhm.
also be something like that for this little girl. She's showing her emotions in a big way, but it's just the flip side of the child who cries frequently at that age. And yet we seem to accept that more
Mm,
from a 5-year-old girl than we do the
right.
big angry
Or
feelings.
that there's supposed to be a time limit on it, right? So I heard that in the wording as well, of like it goes on and on. Now I understand it going on and getting triggered,
Yeah.
because it's just like grating on you like nails on a chalkboard. That's a different issue, which you can definitely work on. But the belief is what I heard, that it
Mm.
should end at a certain time, that it shouldn't go on for a certain amount of time. And so, if you can remove that construct that it has to be over within a certain amount of time, it probably will end sooner. Because honestly, you're probably fighting for her to stop, and it's just escalating it because you're so worried it's going on and on and on and on and on. Whereas if you just let her be, a lot of times it will start to de escalate a lot faster. So, that second piece of the puzzle, like the tactical practical, is coming up with we already know this is going to happen again. She's telling us that it's happened before. So that's where an in the moment plan is super powerful, is saying, all right, I know that when you get frustrated, you yell, you kick, you scream. So I'm pretty sure that the next time you get frustrated, you're going to yell, you're going to kick, you're going to scream. I also know that in the moment you can't tell me and access your words to tell me that you don't feel like that you feel frustrated or that you feel angry. So I can't expect you to do that again. So instead, what if we came up with a let's get safe plan, right? And you come up with like a code word, or, what can I say to you when I notice that you're starting to ramp up? And where can you go? What can you do that'll help calm you down? Maybe it's that she goes to her swing, or maybe she goes under her blankets, or she goes to her safe spot, whatever it is. Like, teaching her ahead of time where to go, what to do, what to say when it starts to ramp up, and then continuing to tweak that plan until both of you are working that plan in the moment, is going to be really powerful before ever getting to an ahead of the moment plan. Because the ahead of the moment plan would be like, when I'm frustrated, I can tell you, Mommy, I don't like that. But she's not ready for that yet. She's not ready to use her words to tell you she's frustrated. She just needs to be able to actually, she needs to lean into that fight response, and she needs to be able to fight something, just something safe. So she needs to go, belt out a song really loud in her room, or she needs to go, scream out the window, or she needs to be able to stomp her feet in her room, or jump on her bed, whatever it is that's going to get that response out for her or calm her. And that's where it comes to being like really understanding your unique child.
And so, for people watching, if this is making sense to you, I'd love you just to write yes in the comments if you feel that this is something that you can bring into your own life. And there were a few things I wanted to pick up on there, Dana. The first thing you were saying that, the traditional view is to talk to your child, to try to talk to them out of it. And then we get super frustrated when our children either give us nonsense back, or they just can't give us the words, or they give us what we consider to be the wrong words. And oh, yeah, lots of yeses coming in there. And I think that it's so important that we remember that for all of us, when we get stressed, our ability to access our language reduces. Even us as
Mhm.
adults with fully formed brains. And this is a little one who had a difficult start in life as well. So her ability to access those words under pressure is going to be even more reduced. And there was something else you said as well that really makes so much sense, that you were talking about when you're making your plan with your child. There's like a default to sensory here, a default to regulation, because we can see that this is a girl who needs help to be able to regulate.
Mhm.
And if we think about those last 12 weeks that she would have had in the womb, that's where all of that soothing, the baby is sucking their thumb inside in the womb, all of that. And she also wouldn't have had quite the same amount of being held, which we know that that touch is so calming and organizing. So I
Mhm.
think you're so right here that there's some sensory strategies here that I think are that foundation. And you were
Mhm.
talking about belting out a song, and we know that singing and even shouting is actually so good for us in the moment. If you can catch it before, you were talking about your
Yeah.
spiral. If you can catch it at a particular part in the spiral, I think, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. You have to catch it ahead of time. I feel like once you get to a certain point, you're just like, all right, here we go. Ready? Like buckle the seatbelts. We're going in. Like we're about to go into the storm. We're just gonna buckle our seatbelts. We're gonna get through it, and then we'll make sense of it when we're done. There's definitely, I mean, those still happen here. Just being totally honest. We're not completely out of the woods here, but it's few and far between. Like it's you know I don't look at my phone every day, whereas I used to with my kiddo at school. Matter of fact, nope, we're good. So I'm like, the moment I say don't look at your phone, then it's like, oh
Yes.
man. But yeah,
And
that
Dana,
can
I'm
be, yeah.
I'm not calm and regulated all of the time. And I don't
No.
expect myself or my friends
Yeah.
to be, and then sometimes we expect our kids to be. There are some lovely comments coming in here. Kira has a great one. She says she has pictures of things like boxing gloves and the trampoline, and when her son starts getting physical, she encourages him to get his energy and anger out in a healthy way. Now, I love the way Kira talks about getting the energy out. I think
Mhm.
that sometimes we default to this idea of emotional regulation, but it's actually energy regulation. If we can default to thinking about this energy spiral, and if you can catch it, and then what's a healthy and safe way to release this energy, whether it's through the swinging or the jumping on the trampoline or the boxing gloves or the singing or the dancing, my favorite, dance it out. It's such a different way to think about it from this traditional paradigm of the behavior, what
Mhm.
comes before it, and what's the consequence that's going to come after it. So, any other questions? It would be absolutely lovely to get to apply this to another family here. Lorraine is saying she loves this approach. This was particularly around the teenagers and joining them
Mm.
in their world. And so, if you had one key message, Dana, that you would love parents to take away, so you've shared so much gold with us today. So, if there was one key thing that you would like parents to remember, what would it be?
I think the thing that I'm kind of on a mission for all parents to know is that they are exactly the parent that their child needs. It's not too much, too little. You haven't ruined your child. That you are here and you're showing up and you're leaning in and you're asking, how do I do this better? What else can I do? And that tells me that you are exactly the parent your child needs. And then on the flip side, your child is exactly the human, the child, the being that they are meant to be. They're put on this earth this way for a reason, to teach you, to guide you, honestly, I believe, to change the world. And it's our jobs as parents to guide them and help them hone those skills so that they can. So, I don't believe that you're failing, and I don't believe that your children are broken in any way, shape, or form. So, that's my big, like, kind of mission on in this world to share with people.
Dana, that is just so beautiful. And I would love you to share a little bit about how, if somebody wants to find out more about your approach, if they want to learn more about your framework or learn more about the plans where you layer things on top of each other bit by bit, what's the best way for them to find out about your work?
The best way is, I believe you have a special link for them. So we
Oh,
are
let's
running
go and
a
see.
running a workshop right now. It's called Meltdown Mastery, and we're in the middle of it, but it's not too late in any way, shape, or form. You just join in. You can watch them on your own timing, and you can watch them on replay. And the first video is all about how to ride the storm, how to remain calm when like category 3 storms are happening outside, your window. And we then in video 2, which is actually tomorrow, so again, not behind in any way, we're going to be walking through that in the moment plan to layer on top of your ride the storm plan. And then the third video is all about how to get ahead of the plan or ahead of the moment. And so we're going to be walking you through an ahead of the moment plan. And then the other plans you can start to layer on afterwards once you've started identifying your biggest chaos causer and you've started kind of knocking down those dominoes. And then the final one is Sunday, and we're going to be doing a masterclass and walking through the 5 biggest traps and pitfalls that we see even the best parents fall into when they're trying to manage tantrums, outbursts, meltdowns, you name it, that are wreaking havoc on their family.
Amazing. And to put this in context for everybody watching, there are 10,000 people going through this together. The
I think we're at
momentum
11,000 now.
Are you? Oh my
Yes.
goodness. The momentum in the group is incredible. And I think
Yes.
it's just such a lovely thing to be part of. Joanne just said there that what you shared about being the exact parent for your child, that made her cry, which I think is so lovely. And it
I
really
love
brings
that.
home how profound that message is. Roisin has shared that she's going to put the phrase "do less, better" in bold on her fridge. Now, this is something that I advise all of the time. Pick a phrase, a mantra, and I know you talk about something similar, Dana.
Mhm.
Pick whatever it is and display it where it's going to be easy for you to see for those in the moment chaos experiences, something that's going to help you feel safe in that moment so
Mhm.
that you can then soften your face and soften your body language and move into that connection so you can help your child feel safe too.
I love that so much.
Yeah, so I've just shared the link there for anybody who wants to join. I think you would really, really love it. It's well worth joining. So if you have liked what you've heard here this evening, drop a heart or put a yes, whether you're watching live or on replay. I'll be really excited to hear what was your key takeaway from this evening as well.
Right.
So, Dana, I know you have a chock-a-block day. Thank you so much for being here with us. I know you have squeezed us in between lots of different coaching calls. It's just been amazing to have you here. Yeah, lots of people are saying yes, that this has really resonated with them.
Awesome.
And thank you so much, Dana.
Well, it has
Uh,
been fabulous being here. So thank you so much.
Wonderful. And everybody, thank you so much. I will see you all in the comments, and I'm so looking forward to reading about what's your key takeaway from this evening's session. All the best. Bye bye.